Hello everyone and welcome to another how to draw video tutorial by me, Jason Rose the artist. And today, same as last time, you're going to need just a basic pencil, nice and sharp, a nice big sheet of paper and a rubber, preferably one that's broken in half because as I showed you last time, it's really much easier to use that for detail. And today we're going to draw a bird. Do you remember last time we drew this, a very simple picture. Basically, it was a ball on a table, wasn't it? And I showed you how to turn it from a 2D picture into a 3D picture using shading, using contrast, using the rubber for highlights, all of those techniques that make it really 3D, make it really look like it's coming out of the paper. Now today we're going to be using all of those techniques, but we're going to be drawing something a little bit more complicated than a ball on a table. A ball on a table doesn't really involve what you call proportions. It's just very simple. It's just a round circle, isn't it? A bird involves proportions. Proportions are basically the shape of things, the correct shape of things. So the correct shape of the beak, of the eyes, and the relationship between all of those things. Everything has proportions. But the proportions of a bird aren't necessarily as complicated as other things like a lion or a human face or maybe a landscape. So I normally start people off drawing birds because they're fairly simple. They're very beautiful, but they're fairly simple to draw. And what we're going to do, we're going to draw it shape by shape. Now, I think the best thing to do is if I put this close to the camera like this, maybe you could do a screenshot of that while I hold it still. Yeah, possibly. And then, and if you can, and then maybe have it up on another device, possibly so that you can have the picture there while you're drawing along with me, or possibly even print it out if you've got a printer at home. If not, then don't worry, you can just go along with this video and use this picture in the video. And another thing that you can do as well is to make it a little bit easier is if you have a sheet of blank paper, you can just cover part of your picture at a time and just draw the part that we're focusing on at one time, and then just move your paper down. This really makes drawing a lot easier when you just draw a bit at a time. So that's another trick that you can do. But we're going to try and do this together. So try and do it along with me. Now, when I draw things, yes, I see things as what they are. So that's a bird, isn't it? So I'm going to be drawing a bird, and it's got an eye, it's got a beak, and it's got feathers, and it's got wings, and there's a branch, it's got feet. So you can look at things in that way, but you can also look at things in a different kind of way, in a what you call a more abstract way. And you can look at the shapes that make up those things. So, for example, there's a shape here, the top of his head, the markings of the head, the markings here, the shape of his eye, the shape of the little light bit in his eye. The beak itself is split into quite a few different shapes. The shapes of the shadow, the shapes of the light, the shapes of what you call negative space, the shapes outside of things. So you can look at things in a different way as well, in an abstract way, and you're just looking at the shapes. And I do that when I draw things, and it makes things much easier to draw when you just look at them as shapes and build them up shape by shape. Now that means not just drawing the outline first and then just shading it in the way a lot of people draw when they haven't really done a lot of drawing. So we're not going to do the outline first and then just fill it in. We're going to build it up shape by shape. So it's quite a different way of drawing, and it may mean that at the beginning you might look at your picture and think, oh my goodness, this doesn't look like a bird. That's okay. It will slowly, if you get all the shapes correctly, the bird will appear kind of magically, almost without even trying. So first thing we're going to do is when you first start drawing, don't hold your pencil too far down and press too hard, because we're going to make mistakes. Remember, all artists make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. And that's absolutely fine. But you don't want to press too hard because you're going to probably need to rub things out. So try and hold your pencil fairly far down, not too close, kind of like here. Don't press too hard. And remember, keep it sketchy, keep it a bit messy. It doesn't have to be perfect. We don't want perfection. We want it to be a bit messy. That sometimes gives your drawings a bit of life. If they're too perfect, they don't really have a lot of life. So we don't need to be too neat and tidy. We need to use our observation skills, but we don't need to be too neat and tidy. Yeah, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just do this shape here. So just that top bit, almost like he's wearing a hat. I'm going to just move this a little bit like this. Okay, hope you can see that. So we're going to do the top bit here like this. So just a shape at a time. This top shape here is like a kind of hat that starts off thick and goes a little bit thinner like that. And we're going to shade it at the same time as we're going along. I don't like to leave the shading right to the end. I like to build it up as we go along. Now I'm shading, when I shade an animal, I like to shade in the direction of the fur or the feathers. Almost you imagine like you're stroking it. You wouldn't stroke an animal in the wrong way, would you? You wouldn't stroke a dog or a cat going towards its head. You stroke it in the direction of the fur. So when I'm shading an animal, I like to shade as if I'm stroking the animal in the direction of the fur or the feathers. So I'm shading around like this, and I'm trying to shade in the direction of the feathers. And that gives you something called texture as well. So we're getting the proportions, and we're also getting shading, and we're getting texture, kind of all at the same time. Now working down, let's just get this light shape here. So there are dark shapes and there are light shapes. So now we're just going to draw this shape here. So it's a shape that comes up here, and then it goes around the eye, and then it just goes up to the beak there. We're going to leave that white because that's quite light. Now we're going to do, I think we're going to do the eye. So just a circle here. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to do a little circle here and then shade around it really dark, maybe pushing, going a little bit kind of harder like this. Okay. So it's kind of looking a little bit like a bird at the moment, but it doesn't, you know, it will slowly look more and more like a bird. Now we're going to do this big shape around here, this kind of shape underneath the eye like that. And what we're going to do now is just push your pencil really flat, and we're just going to shade this in fairly lightly. Most of that isn't as dark as that. So we're going to go fairly light in the direction of the fur. But here it's a bit darker. So here I'm pushing my fingers up the pencil a little bit more, and I'm pressing a little bit harder. Still, and a little bit darker here. So still going in the direction of the feathers. Now I think we're going to come back to this bit. Let's focus on this bit here, and we're going to get the beak. So let's just get the whole shape of the beak like that. Now there's a line here, and that's slightly darker, that top. So let's just shade that, and there's a line here, and there's a little bit here like this, a little bit of shadow. We don't have to get every single bit in. We don't have to get 100% detail. We're just trying to get the important thing. So there's a bit of a shadow here. Let's just put that shadow in. So it is starting now to look a little bit like a bird. Now this line just comes down here like this. Let's just get this bit here as we come down to his neck like that. There's a little bit of shading just on the inside of his neck like that. So remember, we're trying to get shadows. Remember, as we did with the bull, we're imagining where the light is coming from. Now, where's the light coming from here? The light, is coming from this way. So the light is here, and the shadow is on this side. So if we look to the bull that we did last time, with the bull, do you remember the light was coming from here, and the shadow was on the opposite side of the bull? So the same here with the bird. The light is on this side of the bird, and the shadow is on that side. So we're going to put a little bit of shadow just on his face there. Maybe use my finger to smudge a little bit. This fur is slightly, these feathers are slightly less feathery than these feathers. So I can smudge it, make it, when you smudge with your finger, you make things very smooth. So making that a little bit smoother, and it creates a really nice shadow when you use your fingers. Now we're going to come to the back of his neck here, and we're going to do this shape here. Yeah, so this kind of neck shape here, like this, that goes around, this light shape here. And now maybe just the shape of this kind of these markings that he's got around his neck. Now this is these feathers are going downwards, so I'm going to hold my pencil this way, and I'm going to try and shade up and down, up and down, up and down like this. So I get the markings, but I get the feather texture as well at the same time. And maybe just a little bit of my finger like that. Now, once you start getting some shading on there, you can use your rubber, your nice kind of sharp broken rubber, and I can start to maybe get some little feathery, there's all like little light feathery bits in that dark shading. So that's why it's nice to have a broken rubber, so you get the edge to it like that. Maybe even on the top a little bit like that, you see. So really use your rubbers aren't just for rubbing out mistakes. Your rubbers are for putting in light as well. So we're getting his head now. That's great. Then we're going to work our way down. Let's just now really look at let's look at the negative space shape here. Now we're going to get the branch in, but rather than just looking at the branch, I'm going to draw this shape. Can you see this kind of triangle shape like that? And that will help me get the proportions of the branch to the bird. So I'm looking at this shape, not just looking at the bird and the branch, I'm looking at the shape between them. And that will help me get the relationship between the bird and the branch more accurately, like this. So that bit there, and now I can maybe start to draw the branch like this. So I'm drawing the branch almost at the same time as the bird, because they are connected, because they're not two separate things really, because the bird and the branch are connected in one image. Right, and now let's come back to this bit. Let's get the belly like this, and this is quite long, so really nice and long like this, and then it comes around like that, and we're going to get the branch going all the way down there like that. Ta-da! Now let's get some shading on this big belly. Okay, so I'm going to hold my pencil flat and up and down shading like we did with the ball on the table now. And do you remember with the ball on the table, what happened was the outlines disappeared, didn't they? As we started to shade the outlines, you start off with an outline, but remember in real life things don't have outlines, they just have shading and contrast. So we're shading inwards from the outline that we just drew of the bird's belly, inwards to the bird, like that. Maybe use my finger a little bit, maybe use my rubber. So I love doing this, great fun, getting kind of feathery, that feathery effect, like that. So we're making the bird look 3D. Now, when we come, do you remember with the ball on the table, do you remember where the ball was light? Let's have a look at the ball on the table again, if I can find it. Now, do you remember where the ball was light, the background was dark? So let's look at our picture here. Now here, as we've just done, the belly of the bird is darker than the background. But if we look, let's have a look here. This bit of the bird is lighter than the background. Yeah? So what I'm going to do here is shade into the background. And also this bit of the bird as well is actually lighter than the background. And just shade the background there a little bit. Maybe smudge that with my finger. Have to remember that the top of the bird is darker than the background. So I'm going to shade the background a little bit, but I'm going to make sure the bird is darker. I'm going to use my rubber just to kind of change the proportions a little bit there of the bird. And just use my finger to smudge that. Now, can you see the bird really stands out here in the opposite way to here? Here, the belly of the bird is darker than the background. Let's put a little bit of shading in the background. Whereas here, the neck of the bird is lighter than the background, just like we did with our ball. Trying to get the shading and the contrasts And what's happening to the outlines? The outlines are disappearing, either into the background or into the bird. And the bird is looking more and more 3D, more realistic. So let's just try and finish this bird off. There's a little bit, I'm just even going to use some of the shading on my finger just to get that little shadow in the belly. Sometimes you can just use whatever's on your finger. It's great. Your fingers can become a bit like pencils in themselves. And we're just now going to just get the leg here. There's a leg there with a dark shadow on that side, and just the claws going around like this. You don't have to spend a lot of time on the claws, just kind of a shape like that. And let's just get there's a claw that comes around there like that. And the bird, the rest of the bird, the bird's tail feathers kind of carry on the other side of the branch. So let's just do these bird's tail feathers that come down like this, like that. Another interesting shape here using my finger. Tail feathers there, and then you've got a few tail feathers. As you come away from the bird, it doesn't, I wouldn't necessarily put loads of detail down here. This can be fairly a bit more abstract and a bit more sketchy, and it can be, and as you come down here, you can just let it kind of go a bit more sketchy as you come away from the main part of the sketch. Gives it a little bit more life as well, and it means you don't have to put so much detail right down here. Also, we can see here that the contrast, the background is darker than the bird. So let's just make that really nice and dark here. I use my finger just to, as we start to put the contrast in, you can see that the bird is really, really standing out. Also, the branch is darker, is lighter than the background here. So the outlines are slowly disappearing, and it's looking a little bit more 3D. And it should be a bit messy as well. We don't want it to be too perfect. We want to give it a little bit of life. Mess gives things a bit of life as well. And then what I would do if I had a bit more time, obviously I would normally spend more time, is maybe just use my rubber and just chisel things out. Have a look at your picture. Have a look at it as it really is. Look at it as a bird and think, well, is it looking like the bird? You know, are there things I need to change? And it's fine. Never ever feel bad about yourself if you've made mistakes. All artists, even the most famous artists in the world, all make mistakes, and it's absolutely fine. Stand back, look at it from a distance, and if you need to change anything, then just change it. So as I look back here, I can see, well, lots of things that I'll probably need to change. Maybe the belly of the bird needs to come in a little bit. I wish it was as easy to make my belly smaller. Anyway, so you can, I call it sculpting, yeah? So you can sculpt with your rubber, and you can just change any proportions you think you need to change. Because remember, as you're going along, it doesn't always go perfectly the whole time. So it's good to kind of look at it and just alter things. So I can even see, like with his neck, it's slightly different here. So I can just really look at it, and I can start to add more shading. This shape isn't completely right. I can really just add to that shape a little bit. Maybe even darken it up in some places. And then maybe I can start to get the highlights as we did with the ball. Oh, my rubber's broken there. Really use your rubber to get the highlights and to chisel things as well. To chisel things out and to sculpt and to make your proportions more realistic. And that's our bird. Let me just show you a little bit closer. Still needs work, but I'm going to work on it a little bit more once I stop this video. And that's the picture again. So we built it up shape by shape. We used contrast, we used shading, we used the rubber to get texture, to get highlights, to sculpt with, and we looked at it a shape at a time as well. So try and look at the bird shape by shape by shape, and then stand back and look at it as a bird, and hopefully it will look like a bird. And you might need to make some alterations as well. Remember, it's always fine to make alterations. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And there will be another video coming soon. how to draw, maybe something even more kind of complicated next time. Yeah, post any pictures you want to for me to see. It'd be lovely to have a look at any of the pictures that you do, and enjoy drawing and keep well. Okay, bye everybody. Bye bye.